think we're working now. Are you going to stop buffering? Yes, you are. Okay, well, let's get started. Hello, this is the third in a series of streams where I am live coding a rebuild of the dashboard of WaniKani using Tailwind CSS. Where we left off last time, we had built the status, not bar, the status area, status, whatever this is. I think it's just called status. Well, the status section of the website. And we had done a lot of the work towards building the navbar. What I am planning to do this week is pick up where we left off, building the navbar, hopefully get to the point of finishing it. Probably won't go any further than that this week, but at least we'll have a nice navbar put together. I think I talked last week about doing the search bar as well, which is relatively small, so if we got some time we will also do that. Anyway, so where shall we start? I think like most of these are looking pretty nice. There's a few little details that need to be added. For instance, the empty circles have like a little shadow inside of them, so maybe that'll be the first thing we do. Alright, let me see what shadow that is. Right. Am I looking at the right element? I am, I'm just not directly looking at it. So it's actually got two shadows here. We've got this very, very subtle white shadow on the outside, and then we have this grey shadow on the inside. So I guess we have to do both of these. So let me think about the best way of doing this. I think given the duplication of these, like what I don't. Bear with me a second, I'm rethinking this. Yeah, so one of the problems with like the utility approach to shadows is when you've got multiple shadows. So in this instance we have, as I said, the external shadow, like very, very subtle, but we have this white shadow and then we have this grey one on the inside. Because they're all part of the box shadow rule, rather than being things that you can stack on, like the inset shadow and the non-inset shadow, creating one utility for each, which would have been my ideal solution, isn't going to be workable. What I was thinking of doing, since we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 of these circles in the navbar, was extracting the circle into its own component, and then it can have just its own rule for the shadow. I'm still kind of thinking about that. I think I might put that off for now and just create a utility for both of these shadows. Alright, let me go into the Tailwind config file and search for the section with shadows. Right, so as you can see, we have this default shadow, and then we have medium, large, inner, bottom, and none. For now, I'm going to create this new rule. And what shall I call it? Alright, to begin with, let's just copy this. Right, so I'm going to call it navbar item. I don't entirely like that name, but in the interest of getting things moving, let's call it that for now. I mean, the reason I don't like it is, I mean, obviously, what if we use it somewhere other than the navbar? Alright, so I believe 1, 2, 3, 4. I put it in the wrong place. I think I said before about like my preference to try and keep these classes alphabetized. Certainly that's not required, but it helps me to know what might be where when I'm adding things, so I don't add conflicting classes. Feel free to approach it any way you'd like, though. Okay. Alright, that should do it. I'm not entirely convinced that the that we're currently... No, we're not compiling anything. Okay, so let me start npm. Wait for the notification. Actually look at our project. Did I get a notification there? I certainly did what it needed to do, but I'm just going to double check this. Oh, I'm being ridiculously stupid. I switched off notifications before I started the stream, that's why it's not working. Okay. Alright, and hard refresh, and we have a shadow. We've also got a shadow on something that I didn't mean to put a shadow on, so clearly I've been adding classes in the wrong place. Shadow navbar item. There we go. And so that means we've got something missing. Alright, that's good. I have a suspicion that these probably have that subtle white shadow around the outside as well, so we'd maybe have to add something to them, but I'm not going to worry about that just yet. Alright, so I've got that in place. Now, I guess the next thing... Let me go back to the tab again. Alright, so we've got a couple of choices. We've got these other items, so we've got the like the account menu, like avatar and the avatar photo, and we have the actual WaniKani logo that need to be added, and then we have hover states that need to be created as well as like a few of these items have drop downs. So these two, not even this one, reviews has a hover drop down. And I think levels, radicals, kanji, vocab, and menu have their own drop downs. So I think the first thing we do, I think maybe if we get all the elements that are sort of default in here first. So I guess the main logo and / like home link, and if we get the menu for your account in there, and not the menu, the like the avatar. All right. Well, turns out I had already created a list item for this one, so maybe we go with this. All right. So yeah, that adjusts things slightly. I'm just gonna have to grab this image. Right. I think I'm going to be lazy and just link straight to it for now. Is that everything? Darn. Okay, so this is a background image. Just an approach. I'm just going to try. What am I talking about? I'm just going to try sticking it in a in an image tag and see what happens for now. We may revert to using the background image approach, but I'm just going to do it this way for now. Okay, let's see what we get. Okay. So I can see why they use the background image. No, I'm going to keep this actually. I'm going to keep this for now. We are going to move to a background image. But first things first, I'm actually going to sample this color. I don't think we have a pink yet. No, we don't. Right, so Tailwind, out of the box, it comes with this whole spectrum of colors. So you have like varying shades of red, orange, yellow, green, teal, blue, indigo, purple, and pink. So pink is what we're interested in, but we only really need this one pink for now, which kind of falls on the F0, F6. So it's kind of in between the current pink and pink light, but we don't really care about any of the others, so I'm just going to straight up delete these because we're not going to be using them. I'm also going to delete, I think, all of the colors except for like the black to grey scales. We will need a few other colors, but I think if we add our own rather than using the ones that come out of the box, because I don't think we're ever going to end up needing them. Right, and if I add BG pink here, rounded full. Right, so this should now be round and it should have a pink background, and it does. Okay, so I wonder if we need that actually. If I do, yeah, we do need that. So this is what happens if we set overflow hidden, but what it's also doing is it's not quite the right size. So what did I use to set the size? Alright, border grey dark, flex, H14. Let's stick H14 on here. Stick margin bottom as well. MX Auto. Here we go with 14. I think this actually does the job. Does it? This looks slightly off to me, but I don't know whether I'm... Well, it's the same size, and these are the same size, so I think for now that's good enough. Alright, so this also has the shadow. Interesting. Right, so if I shadow navbar item, if I copy this onto my first item, go back to my reviews. Yeah, we're good. Right, the next thing I need to copy over is the margin. Oh no, I've already got it. I don't need to copy it over. So I just need text at the bottom. I could be lazy and just copy it over from the website, but I'm going to type it on myself. Wani. Fun fact, at the level that I'm at on WaniKani, it still hasn't actually taught me either of these kanji. I don't know when it gets to them, and like even outside of my use of WaniKani, because I came into it knowing quite a lot of kanji anyway, I still don't know them. I mean, they're fairly complex, so it doesn't surprise me if I haven't gotten around to learning them. Okay, there we go. There's a few things in terms of like the overall positioning that feels a bit off, but I think we're good. I think a lot of that's just based on like the size of their container compared to ours, and like a few things have a bit more padding, not about padding, margin. Alright, so let's add, that's the last item as well. So what I am going to do is copy over this, because we keep the carrots, and place the content with an image tag. Alright, can I just copy the link again? Oh, so it's just gravitas, so let's pull that in. Again, they're using a background image, but I'm just going to use an actual image tag. Okay. Alright, so the image of me is square and has not got overflow hidden set on it at the moment, so it's not looking right. But if I set overflow hidden, that does that. Alright, so the next problem I have, or I think I have, is that okay, so they don't actually have any padding, not padding, what was it? They don't have any border on this, so if I get rid of the border classes, okay, and why is the shadow not? Shadow navbar item doesn't seem to be affecting anything. Why is that not working for this? So is there... oh, because this doesn't have transparency. Right. Okay. Oh, that's a point, because that is only appearing behind here, and that's not really what we want. We want it to the shadow to appear over the image. So back to the drawing board. Right. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I think, is... yeah, I'm going to set this to relative. Right, so create a new element, to position absolute, pin X and pin Y. So that just sets top, bottom, left and right all to 0, so that it'll be a div that spans the entire size of its parent. Rounded full, so we get the shadow of the right shape, and then move the shadow class over here. Let's see what this does. Yeah, that worked. And then if I do the same up here. What? What did I do wrong? I did not make this display relative. Right. Oh, I have given this the wrong name. Yeah, and we're good. So the next thing we need to do is move this over to the right. I think if I think the class is self-end. No, it's not. Right. Okay. So apparently if I set ML auto, that should do it. So hold up, I've already got MX auto on this. Ah, no, because it's on this. Oh, there we go. And that's how you do it. Alright, so that's everything in there. So I think that's for the first thing I'm going to do, let's get the hover for the main logo working. So let's grab this purple. Right. So what does it set it on? Okay. So for hover effects, if you set this, if you add a class that has the word hover followed by colon and then whatever you want the class to be, that will then only apply the effect to that class when the element is currently hovered. So in this instance, we have nice hover here. Alright, the other thing I think I maybe want to do is switch this to being a link, so we get the cursor. Like you can just put a class of cursor pointer on it, but since effectively this would function as a link, that's what I think I'm going to make it. Right, so href equals. I'm just going to set the href to be the root of the site at the moment, which makes sense because that's what it would do normally, I think. Yeah. Would it? Yes, it does. Okay. So that gets us a pointer, but it's not a block, so right, so this, there we go. Alright. There is a slight fade to this. Okay, so okay. What approach do I take to this? Alright, so if I just paste these over into here for now, let's go to CSS. Tailwind doesn't come with transitions at the moment. I think they're still trying to figure out the best approach for that. That doesn't end up massively bloating the file size. So we're going to have to take our own approach to it. I'm going to try and create something that follows a similar style of API. So rather than creating a utility class of my own that stacks all of these current transition properties, I'm going to break it up a little bit. So let's check the docs. Transition duration, transition property, all okay. What am I doing? Sticking a semicolon there. Okay. I think these are a bit too verbose, but they do the job. Or hopefully they will do the job anyway. So transition color, transition duration, and transition easing. I've done it again. I should have double checked everything. Yeah, everything's compiling okay. Now, what am I doing? Now, let's see what we get. Ah, that did the job. So the next thing is that these ones need to have their hover states. So, oh, not quite. So hovering actually also affects the text. So all of this area is a link. So rather than doing it this way, what I'm going to do is so I've moved the link to be a parent element of the list item. I'm going to switch this back to being a div. Remove block since it's no longer required. And no, that's not my website. Okay. So first thing I see wrong is that the color is wrong and we get a horrendous underline. Alright, so class equals. It's going to have to move text grade dark into here and no underline as well, which didn't exist previously. Okay, so that takes it back to where we were. The next thing we want to achieve is to change the background color of this div as well as the text color on hover rather than on hover of this whole element rather than on hover of just the div. So let me see. Right, so the first problem is that we change the text color, which is dead simple. Just need to grab the actual color. Right, so set this. Where are you? Ah, you're slightly off screen. Hover. Did that work? I was looking at the wrong place. No, it didn't. It's because I'm looking at my own website. And there we go. So 555 is our hex color. That corresponds to our grey darker. Why is this not changing? Ah, because I didn't put darker, I just put dark. There we go. And okay, so that is changing the text color nicely now. The only thing we need to do is make this background color change on hover the link rather than on hover of the div. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is stick this group class on here. What that means we can do is down here on the background color, rather than having hover, we do group hover. So what it will do is detect when you're hovering over this group and then restart that sentence. So what happens is this applies class of group to the parent element, and then anything in a child element will have like a selector. It's like dot group hover group hover background purple. It's the syntax ends up looking fairly complicated, but it's the equivalent of like if you were to just write the CSS yourself, having a hover state on like a named element, so that element hover, name of the child, background color. It's something similar, but it just, the actual generated CSS is a bit more complicated in order to make it reusable. So in order to get this working, we also need to activate it. Out of the box, groups are not switched on because otherwise the amount of CSS that ends up being created could be fairly huge. So we need to activate it for specific things. I'm just going to double check the syntax for that. Alright, and then let's see what happens. Alright, so it's not currently working. I have a suspicion that the reason it's not working is we're not using the right version of Tailwind at the moment. So I'm just going to open package.json and see what we've got. Alright, so 0.4, 0.0. Okay, so we're still on the latest version, so that should be working. Curious. You definitely not working? You sure you're not working for me? No. I didn't make any mistake with the syntax, did I? No. I put it in the wrong place. We're in border colours rather than background colours. Right. There we go. Alright, so you're next. So what happens? So the only thing that changes here is, I know there's two things that change. We have like this, the background gradient gets darker, and then the border color gets darker as well as the text. Alright, so first things first, if we add a link, I don't know what I'm checking this, all I've done is added a link. That's why I'm checking it. There we go. Right, so that changes the text color. While we're at it, let's take this and give it to the next element as well. Right, so that's text color sorted. Right, let's see what the new gradient's doing. So it's U we want to hover. I'm going to rename this to light, just so we know what we're doing with it. So it's not hover we're after, actually after group hover. So this variance directive will basically make sure that we get the appropriate classes for it. So the group hover colon beachy radial gradient light and dark will function, although we don't need the group hover version of light. Beachy radial gradient light. And it's you that needs it as well. I'm just going to move this. I'm just going to make sure that that's actually working. Yeah, so it's still working. And then hopefully and make these into groups. That did the job. And then the other thing I need to do is, so border color, the rules that we accidentally added group hover to earlier and then removed it, we're re-adding it. So okay. There we go. So now the thing we're missing is the transition. And I'm just going to check what the I think the radial gradient actually doesn't transition. I think it's only the border color. So what did I call it? Transition duo. Ease out. And then no, it's in the right place. Right. No, refreshing the wrong thing again. Okay. That's that done. I'm not going to bother with this little drop down at the moment. What am I going to do next? So I think these need to be the next thing. And you know what? I think we're going to call it a day. So just to recap what we've done this week, we've added the logo and the account menu icons. We have created hover states for these first 3 items, and we've added the shadows in the other navbar items. So join me again next time when I pick up where we left off and continue building this navbar. Alright, thanks. Bye. Awkward end of phone call. Like, one day I'll get better at this and like do a proper YouTube sign off, but not today. Or maybe I will. Don't forget to like, favourite, subscribe, and do all those YouTubey things that people do. Yay.